All right, good morning, everyone. It is Monday, October the 16th. Our scripture reading for today is Mark chapters 8 and 9. Beginning in verses 1 through 10 of Mark chapter 8, Jesus feeds the 4,000 people with 7 loaves and a few small fish, and he has 7 large baskets of leftovers that are gathered afterwards. In verses 11 and 12, the Pharisees seek a sign that Jesus is who he says he is. Now, it's always someone seeking proof that Jesus was who he said he was, and all the proof was right before them. All the miracles, all the teachings, everything that they needed to believe was right there. They just refused to. In verses 13 through 21, Jesus warns the disciples against the leaven of the Pharisees again. Now, he was saying the leaven of the Pharisees, but he was talking about their teachings, their traditions, if you will, specifically their unbelief, how they resisted the good news and the gospel. In verses 22 through 26, he heals a blind man in Bethsaida. In verse 27 through 30, Peter confesses that Jesus is the Christ when Jesus asked them, "Who do men say that I am, and who do you say that I am?" Verse 31 through 33, Jesus again foretells his coming suffering, saying that he must suffer in order to complete God's plan and in order to complete our redemption, our salvation. He must have gone through the things that he did that was foretold. So in verses 34 through 38, he calls us to die to self and to live to him, for him. There's a cost to following Christ. There's a cost to salvation. Yes, it's free. He gives it to us free, but it costs us our commitment to him. We've got to turn loose of self and seek him, follow him. That's the cost of our salvation. We give our life away to him. He lives it through us after we give it to him. In chapter 9, verses 1 through 9, Jesus goes up on the mountain of transfiguration, and the words from God there to the disciples that are with him, "This is my beloved Son, hear him." Verses 10 through 13, there's questions about rising from the dead and about Elijah. Jesus told them that he was going to rise from the dead, and they didn't quite understand that. And also they were asking about the Elijah to come that was prophesied in the Old Testament scriptures. And in the parallel passage in Matthew, Jesus tells them, or they understand that it's John the Baptist, that Elijah. In verses 14 through 29, Jesus cast out a demon from a boy, saying to the Father, "If you can believe, all things are possible to him who believes." And he says, "Yes, Lord, I believe. Help my unbelief." That's where we need to be every day. We need to ask the Lord to strengthen our faith. We need to say, "Lord, I believe that you are the King, the Lord of glory. You are the forgiver of sins. You are the price for my redemption. Help me in my faith to grow closer to you every day." All right, in verses 30 through 32, again, Jesus predicts his death and his resurrection. Verse 33 through 37, the disciples are discussing among themselves who's going to be the greatest. And Jesus says, if anyone desires to be first, he shall be last of all and servant of all. Think about this. If you're trying to be number one, what's going to happen is you're going to be the last one. You're going to bring up the end of the party. Jesus is teaching about humility. We have to humble ourselves before him. Verse 38 through 41, there was someone that was casting out demons in Jesus' name, and the disciples rebuked that person. Now the question is, were they jealous for Jesus, or were they jealous for themselves? Were they saying, well, this guy's taking some notoriety from Jesus, or is it he's taking notoriety from us? So Jesus again reminds them that if there are others that are working with them, they should not be stopped. So now, verse 42, there's consequences. They said there's consequences for hindering spiritual growth in others. Jesus warns them about that. If someone is is holding someone else back or teaching someone else wrong, then they are going to pay the price for that. Verses 43 through 48 is the importance of removing sin from our lives. We all sin, but we've got to make sure that we are trying to remove sin from our lives. Verse 49, trials and persecutions are going to come. Jesus says everyone will be seasoned with fire. Verse 50, we've got to be committed and stay committed and then have peace. Now, the thought for today: the worship, the love, the loyalty due Christ is not to be shared with anyone else.